Okay, I'm recording the conversation so that I'll have a copy for future reference. So you are all welcome to today's Safeoclock Health and Safety Interactive Workshop. My name is Johnson, and I'll be leading the presentation. And as usual, we'll just do a short presentation and we'll use our personal experiences to round off the discussion. So because on the topics we are discussing today is more of a practical topic. So today we are talking about management of SIMOPS. So it's more of a practical topic and it will be better discussed with experiences. So I've had a lot of feedback saying that they learn more from the people's discussion of their experience and how they carry out the activity in their workplace than even more than the presentation. So we'll take more of practical experience sharing. I think that will fetch us more information. So I could say today we are discussing SIMOPS. SIMOPS is just a short form of simultaneous operations. So what exactly is simultaneous operations? It simply refers to the practice of conducting multiple activities concurrently in the same place or in the same area. So what this simply means is that when two activities are going on at the same location and at the same time, so we refer to that situation as a SIMOPS. In some situations, it's unavoidable. In some industries, especially in oil and gas industries, SIMOPS is unavoidable. It's not like something that happened by mistake. It's unavoidable practice that you cannot do without it. There are some activities that they must be done concurrently and they must be done at the same time. So in such situation, you will not use a elimination method will not work. So we are going to find other safe practice or other safe procedures to put in place to ensure that the activity was concluded safely. So that is where SIMOPS comes into play. So first, having known what SIMOPS is, or having known what simultaneous operations is, we'll now look at what are the risk factors associated with SIMOPS. So when we understand the risk factors, then we'll be able to understand the type of control measures that should be in place. The first risk factor is conflicting activities. So when these activities are going on, you agree with me that some of them might conflict with each other, even though that they might be required at the same time, but they might be conflicting with each other. And this increases the likelihood of accidents, or it can even disrupt one of the operations. Like one is going on, the other one is trying to start. So one of them can disrupt the other, and it will increase the risk of accident. Another risk factor is communication challenge. When the simultaneous operations are going on, maybe due to increased noise level, maybe due to lack of coordination, you see that communication becomes a challenge. And when you use sign languages, you can give errors. There could be unsafe conditions that are not properly communicated to. So communication challenge is one of the risk factors associated with simultaneous operations. Another risk factor is increased hazard exposure. So when the activities are going on simultaneously, you find out that the hazards exposure becomes double. If it was a single activity, you see it would have been maybe a single hazard or maybe one phase hazard. But when it becomes a simultaneous operation, the hazard becomes multiple phase, and one will be on your left, one will be on your right, and it becomes a very high potential hazard. So that is when the simultaneous operations are going on, you see that there are higher chances of accident because of this increase in hazards. So another risk factor I will talk about is constraint in resources. So if the activities are going on simultaneously, that's at the same time, you'll see that the personnel will be consumed, everyone will be engaged. So when there is an issue, or maybe when there is an incident, there will be no free person to help out, or maybe to be in form of rescue. So simultaneous operations keeps everyone engaged at the same time, and that is a very high risk factor, in the sense that no one is looking out for each other. Everyone is concentrated on his own activity, and it becomes a very high risk potential. So that is one of the risk factors associated with SIMOPS. Another one is emergency preparedness. So when an emergency occurs during simultaneous operations, you see that it becomes so tedious, because a lot of people are involved, a lot of equipments are involved, a lot of facilities are involved at the same time during the simultaneous operation. So if there is need for emergency, you see that how quick the emergency should be handled becomes delayed, because of maybe a place is already clustered, or a lot of people are involved, or maybe it becomes a multiple accident that requires more hands to handle the emergency. So simultaneous operations has another risk factor associated with emergency preparedness and how to handle the emergency when operations are going on simultaneously. So another risk factor that is associated with simultaneous operations is the environmental impact. So you see that when activities are going on simultaneously, it might be difficult to control the environmental pollutions, because everyone is busy and they are concentrating on their own activities. So which will endanger the habitats, the water habitats, or maybe causes spillage to the environment. All right, another risk factor is cumulative risk. This simply means that each operation carrying its own risk. Now they all come together at the same place and at the same time. So this is going to now cause distractions, and it's going to become a very big concern. When, for instance, if hot work was going on and another operation, maybe maintenance of equipment is going on, all in the same location, so you find out that the risk factor associated with each of these activities will now come together and become a very higher risk than they were individually. So that is why SIMOPS, or simultaneous operation, is a stain of concern. Okay, so let's look at few recommendations of how we can handle SIMOPS. First one is to identify additional hazards that will be introduced by SIMOPS. So if the activities used to go on as a single activity or individually, now if it has been prepared to go on simultaneously with another activity, we should be able to identify additional hazards that will be emanating due to this combination of activity. So that is the first thing. So the second thing is to be able to consider how this activity will interact with each other. For instance, if lifting is going on, like when we are doing when we are working in a stadium, there are some activities that they have to be done simultaneously. Some of the rods or some of the beams will be lifted by crane, and someone has to be lifted by a man basket to hook those beams. So you cannot suspend the lifting and allow the person to go. So most of them, they have to go on at the same time. So you see that at that particular point, we need to identify the hazards that will originate due to this combination of this activity. For instance, if we are doing the lifting alone, we know that the hazards and the risks associated with lifting operations are separate. But now, because of the combination of this hooking or maybe suspended load and somebody going with man baskets to be able to hook the beams together, we see that there is an interaction between these two operations, and a different hazard will have to originate because of this interaction. So we need to be able to identify these hazards together. Now, the next step or the next thing we can do while handling SIMOPS is to assess this risk. One must have identified the hazards associated with each of the activities, identify the hazards associated with the combined operations. That's when the activities are together in SIMOPS. Now we have to assess the level of risk of each of the individual tasks involved in the SIMOPS. Then we evaluate the severity and the likelihood of the potential accidents. Now, after this assessing, we have to prioritize each task. If possible that the task can be done individually, we have to prioritize the task. But if it cannot be handled individually, then we need to verify other control measures that should be in place to ensure that the simultaneous operations is completed safely. Okay, then the next thing that we can do is to identify better risk reduction measures. For instance, like the operation we are talking about, if it's possible to do all the assembling on the ground level, assemble everything on the ground level and bring maybe more heavier cranes to lift them at the same time. So we just identify if there are more better risk reduction measures that can be in place. But if not, then we need to ensure that we control these activities using proper permit to work procedure, because the permit to work procedure will be able to help us to identify which activity is going on at what time and ensure that there is proper communication between the two coordinators or maybe the two supervisors in charge of these activities. And the permit to work procedure will also help us to ensure that the workers engaged in this activity understand the risk associated with this. They should be able to understand that the activity they are about to undertake does not involve only their own individual activity, but there is a simultaneous operation going on, and there are risks that could originate from the activities very adjacent to them or combined to their own activity. So proper communication should be in place, and the activities should be properly monitored and controlled using using permit to work procedure. Okay, so that is a brief description of SIMOPS operations from me. And like I said, today we are going to share more of practical experiences of where we have witnessed simultaneous operations, how we were able to manage it, and give, if there were some lessons learned, maybe due to poor management of simultaneous operations, so we can learn from there as well. All right, so I will leave the floor open so that we'll start the discussion. I will come in between also to share my own experience. All right, the floor is open.
Good evening, all.
Good evening, our Francis.
Good evening. Good evening.
Yeah. My people, good evening. All. Sorry, I'm just
Your face to be this.
my brother.
Welcome.
Thanks, Jerry. It's been a while. In fact, I said let me attend this particular section before I delve into my my usual assignment and all that. It's been really tasking and all that, you know. But my first module class has ended, so that is why I'm able to be here today.
Yeah.
So the next module will start next week. But it will not be on a Thursday. So hopefully it's not supposed to. I think Monday's Wednesday now for the second module, so it won't really affect my presence now for the webinars. Basically to just have a brief say, you know, with respect to what the topic of discussion is. I know in most cases, especially like in the process industry, the issue of SIMOPS is not is something of great importance. You know, it cut across all industries. You know, I don't want us to not to quote us wrongly, but I can say, especially in the process industry, a lot of tasks or activity has to be done simultaneously, rather, in order to meet up probably productions and all that. So definitely with such kind of challenges, we know from the word simultaneous, you know, activity happening at the same time. So definitely as an health and safety practitioner, we need to understand that when we find out that such an activity is going on, there's likely to be high risk in the sense that more people will be involved that ordinarily are not supposed to be exposed. Secondly, the risk, we might be having a kind of multiple risk factor in such kind of environment. So basically, it's something that is an activity that someone needs to really pay more critical attention into, especially before the beginning of the activities in general, because there should be a kind of a proper planning with all the stakeholders that are involved, you know, maybe the supervisor, foreman, or whoever is in charge for each of all these activity. They need to have a kind of proper planning and risk assessment, you know. So such activity, just Mr. Johnson has said a lot, but I just want to just pinpoint some few things, you know, and though he might have said something before I came in. So it's very important that the planning of the job, you know, is very important, because during the time of planning, we should be able to identify the risks that are likely to be there. And also, as long as the job, the activity starts, also, there should be a kind of frequent monitoring, you know, of the process to be able to identify some other factors that could lead to either accident or injury along the line. So, like I said, there must be proper coordination. If there is no coordination, you know, Mr. Johnson was giving an instances when he was working in the stadium project. Some things are going on, some little activity are going on, and all that. See, if there is no proper planning or proper coordination between those departments or those in charge of different activity, definitely, you know, it's going to create a very big risk environment, you know, for the workers and also for the property itself. So, and it is also good that communication, you know, is very important. You know, all the topic we've discussed so far that has to do with hazard risk management and all that, the same procedures are applicable to SIMOPS activity, but in a more intense way, because it involves multiple activity taking place at the same time. So that is where it becomes more risky, because you will not say because you are doing, let's say you are a carpenter, you are working in one section, and on the other side, artwork is going on. You know, so the entire workforce who are carrying out activity within the same environment that are being done simultaneously need to understand even the hazard. The one who is working artwork need to understand the hazard present with somebody who is doing carpentry work. And even the person who is doing the carpentry work need to understand the hazard of artwork and all that. So everybody need to, it just look like you're having a multiple refresher knowledge, you know, to just boost the knowledge of the workers to be aware, you know, because it's very, very important, because if you are well informed, one will be able to identify any hazard or risk within the environment. But if not, definitely the workers who are not knowledgeable, who are not aware, are themselves a strong hazard within such an environment. So most importantly, implementation of safety measure is very, very critical. You see, that's where we come in as a professional with the help of our management team to ensure that everything is done in the right perspective in order to manage the risks and everything. So, like I said also, you know, training and education is very important in any angle we want to come in terms of training and education. It could be a form of awareness, it could be a form of a proper regular training and all that regarding all activities that are being taking place in such an environment, so that you will not say because I am a welder, this does not concern me. No, it's a SIMOPS activity. So whatever is done within such an environment, such knowledge or awareness knowledge should be passed across to every in place to be able to enhance a more preventive measure of the risk. So also, we need to learn from best practices. You know, you have to look at some success stories, look at some lesson learned from previous mistakes, you know, and all that, to be able to incorporate it into the system in order to have an effective SIMOPS operation within our workplaces. So I would just want to keep this discussion open to others while I stop at this point, so that others can give their practical examples as expected. You know, me, for my side, I don't have any experience regarding the CMOS, you know. Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Stephen. Your industry doesn't operate in simultaneous activities. They operate indoors. So
I'm telling you.
the floor is open. Let's hear from other bosses in the house.
All right, so can I come in?
Yes, sir. Come in. We know your industry is a very large one, and
what's wrong?
SIMOPS cannot escape.
All right. Definitely. So let me just buttress more on the feed implementation, just like you said, sharing the practical experience. In various feed where I've worked, we've actually applied the SIMOPS procedure, both in the oil and gas, offshore, onshore, and currently on construction. Let me just give, I think, the procedure we are implementing in my current place of work, like I said in the previous session, is a very large, a mega and gigantic project. So the site is very huge. We have different wings, you know, different areas people are managing. But in the construction site where I manage, I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you. Sure.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right. So in the site where I manage, on daily basis, we have the interface meeting, which is also known as the SIMOPS coordination meeting. So in the SIMOPS coordination meeting, that is where the communication comes in. Like both of you have already emphasized communication. So for us to have that communication every day, we have the SIMOPS meeting, and in the SIMOPS meeting, we review the permit to work that has been raised in the work site. Every permit that has been raised in the work site, we review it, and in that meeting, we have all the different disciplines fully represented. It could be the superintendent or the supervisor, right? They all need to attend, whether from instruments, piping, structural, civil, engineering, commissioning, pre-commissioning, everybody needs to be present. So when we get to maybe your area where you're working, your permit, then definitely we want to look at which activity is performed close in the same area with you. So that is where we now start to brainstorm. It's more like negotiation, right? So we want to quantify both activity and see if we can prioritize, which one will continue and which one will be put on hold, or both can work concurrently with certain safety barriers, mitigations in place. So, and we also apply the metrics, right? The metrics, you can call it SIMOP metrics, or you can call it MOPO, that is metrics of permitted operation. So this metrics of permitted operation is more like the safety risk matrix that we have, against, you are plotting likelihood against, probability, frequency, or outcome of an event. So, but in the case of the SIMOPS, where we have the MOPO metrics, permitted metrics of operation, so we are plotting construction versus construction. So on the horizontal, we have different construction activity ranging, and on the vertical, we also have different, just X, Y, we also have construction activity. So we now start to do cross marking, like interception. So if I'm going to perform a painting activity and another painting activity is being performed in the same area, are we going to allow this activity to continue or not? So, and it's been risk rank. So when we are ranking it, you are ranking it based on 3 categories. Either it's green, yellow, or red. So if it's green color, it's telling us, yes, both activities can go on the same time. It is safe. They don't even need more additional control. But if it falls under yellow, which is medium, it means, yes, both activities can still go on, but however, we need to put certain barriers, additional control in place for both activities to work. But if it falls on red, definitely one has to be put on hold. One has to be suspended. Only one of those activities or tasks is permitted to go on. So while the other one will wait, sometimes that is where the negotiation comes in. Some would say, okay, we are going to work in the morning till 12, then after which we would have been able to complete the task we want to perform in this area. Then why after lunch, the other crew or maybe the other company can come into the same area to perform their own job, right? So, but sometimes when you look at the MOPO, the metrics of permitted operation, some of these two activities don't align. So you can see, like, for example, you have radiation. Yes, radiation, no matter what other activity you want to perform, is not permitted, right? So imagine a radiation and earthwork activity, welding activity. Of course, it cannot work. Even if it's radiation activity, which is radiography, and scaffolding activity or excavation, it can never work, right? Except it is radiation to radiation, that is radiography to radiography. So so we still have cases like that. Maybe painting and earthwork activity, welding, both cannot work simultaneously, concurrently at the same time. So one needs to be put on hold for the other one to continue. right? So, but where we have maybe like a civil activity, then maybe we have a painting. Of course, both activity when being looked into and analyzed based on the inherent hazard, and of course, controls can be put in place to manage this type of activity. Both can go together. So that is one thing we look at. Then in managing the SIMOPS activity, we also consider equipment. Equipment, very, very critical, because most of those equipment, movement of equipment, there are high risk for the possibility of strike. These crane striking this other one, this other equipment, colliding with this other equipment, or objects dropping, suspended load dropping, and stuff like that. So we want to also at the same time identify, will this activity be performed in this work area? So what are the equipment that will be used in that work area? Sometimes you find out two different companies working in the same place, but their activity may require or involve the use of crane. And now we are considering space management at the same time. So when they position this thing, the swinging radius of their crane, or maybe the boom of their man lift or whatever, you see, they could be an intersection, a clash or something. So we want to make sure that, yes, we don't have too many equipment, heavy duty equipment cluster in the same place, because these will create hazard, and there will not even be enough space to manage the swinging radius or risk. So in such case, we need to prioritize. All right, we can permit this company, okay, you go on with your activity, and this other company, you have to hold on. So this is where the safety, you as the safety professional, this is where you come in. So these civil team from this company can say, we are having this activity in this area, their permit is there, we'll see from the permits. Now, this other company will say, we've planned to carry out from our own look ahead to carry out this activity, same place. So we begin to brainstorm. You see, the construction superintendent will now start to say, okay, based on their schedule, based on their own schedule, their own work look ahead, which one they need to prioritize. They need is very important to them at the moment. He wants to give priority. Then I, the safety specialist, I want to come in and say, both activities may not, they may not operate at the same time, but it's up to the construction superintendent to decide which we should continue and which one should be put on hold. And they need to agree on a time. When is this one rounding up their job? It may even take 2 days, it may take 3 days, it may be the same day, but we need to agree that, you people will finish, this crew will finish and leave, and the second crew, we continue their job. Then we also have a scenario whereby, yes, maybe we classify it as medium, it's yellow, right? So what do we do? What are the additional controls? So most times, sometimes I personally do participate on this. I always ensure that before these two companies begin to work in that area, they must perform a combined two-bus meeting. They have to perform a combined two-bus meeting. If possible, every day in the morning, their two-bus meeting, two-bus talk need to be combined. So in the process, both company has a representative who is going to share the hazard associated with their own operations, their own activity, so that the other parties, I believe this has been discussed during the presentation already. So the other companies, they are fully aware of the danger, of the risk, of the hazard, they are exposed to. These other company personnel, they are fully aware. And there it is communicated to all of them. Anybody who is not part of this meeting is not permitted to cross the barricade. Is not permitted to cross the barrier to enter into the area where they are performing their activities, and we ensure they have a good setup. Now, when you look at SIMOPS, most of the safety control measures, most of the time I see that I needed to recommend for them, to implement or grant, it usually doesn't go beyond the engineering control. right? Maybe some are working below, some up. I will say, oh, they need to provide a suspended scaffold, right, with a scaffolding board, just to ensure that in case there is a drop object, it does not, it will land on the platform, on the scaffolding platform. It won't get down to those working below. Some cases, of course, barricades, hard barrier need to be, mounted, installed all around the area where they are working. And of course, administrative control, they need to clearly put the safety signages, warning signs that are relevant to the activity they are performing. Now they need to tell people what activity is going on there and what are the likely or present hazard, risks that are there, and posting another one, to keep people off the area. No unauthorized person should go beyond, a certain point. And of course, we must position a spotter, all right? A spotter who monitors the movement of people. And sometimes I also recommend, after that two-bus talk, now, if it's an area where they have an access that everybody will need to access through, there I would tell them only the workers for, maybe it could be a structural erection team of so-so company, and maybe the painting team of company B, only these workers are permitted to go beyond this point or to access the staircase. All right, so that one is boldly written. They type it in an A3 and post it there. So if you are not working with either of any of these companies or in that particular discipline, you are not permitted to go beyond that point, or access that staircase. So that's another good control I use there. And the SIMOPS, it depends on the organization. Some, they manage the SIMOPS on the magnetic board. All right. Some manage the SIMOPS on the magnetic board. Some even make it visual. For those companies that has a board they can display, they make it visual, so everyone could see. And what I mean, the magnetic board, we have the magnetic, this thing we can put there. You paste the site layout map. You paste the site layout map and you focus on the area where activities is performed. So there you can see, oh, this company A is working in so area, company B is working, the same area. So, and you give them different colors. You can say for company A, so department has color, the blue color, that is their color. Company D, so company has yellow. So when we put it on the magnet board, we are able to identify that, oh, so this is this company, because like a legend, you create a legend, so it makes it easy for people to identify which company has which color and all of that. So you know which company. And also we use that to determine the numbers of equipment that are present in that area and also working in that area. So because where you have those heavy duty equipment, of course, movement of equipment alone is a critical, and high risk activity, especially in the construction side. So managing the SIMOPS for we is through the SIMOPS coordination meeting, which must be performed every day. Secondly, the permit to work system. You need to review all the permits, all right, like all the permits for the area where they want to perform activity, and all the supervisors, who are leading these activities, who are in charge of this activity, must participate in the SIMOPS meeting, because that is where you do the negotiation. That's where you brainstorm. And if they need to put a hold on a particular activity, the supervisor need to agree, need to give their consent that, okay, fine, we can hold on, let this company B do their job and leave, But again, if the job can go concurrently with both, then they would communicate, because the supervisor are the focal points. They are the contact person. So both of them can exchange their contact number. In case of emergency in this one operation, he can quickly call the supervisor, then the supervisor will evacuate his own worker. That is how it works. Apart from the emergency rescue alert system we have in place, but the boat supervisor must have their contacts, and in case there is any emergency situation, the supervisor are also responsible to alert the emergency control room, alert them, or based on my style, we refer to them as SOC, which is Security Operations Center. It's the responsibility of supervisor to alert the SOC, for them to initiate the emergency rescue procedure, for people to be evacuated from the danger zone. So this is how we are able to effectively manage our SIMOPS meeting. And where we have, after we've concluded the meeting, of course, we give feedback. All right, we give feedback to which is being communicated, cascaded and socialized with everyone via the email notification. So people know that, yes, we have these critical activity that will happen in so area. So during the course of the meeting, the construction superintendent is noting those areas where there is definitely going to be, conflict of interest on the job, which is the SIMOPS activity or two company will be working, and we are permitting them to work based on certain controls we'll put in place. And for me, before I sign that permit, I authorize that permit, and I've given a recommendation that you have to do this for, safety precautionary measures. Now you need to implement that, take a picture of it, attach to the permit. I have to see it before I can endorse the permit that activity, can go on. So I need to see it. If I'm saying do a setup like this, you need to show me those evidences that those safety devices or critical equipment has been provided, all those things are being put in place, maybe the barricade, signages. You need to stage it, take it in that location, attach to the permit. I need to view it. That is, if I'm not, I don't have the chance to go to the area to check, but at least with the picture speaks volume. Doesn't tell lies. So once I see that, okay, it's fine, I can be able to sign. I think I've said a few things. I would like to stop here. Thank you very much, Mr. Safeoclock, for giving me this opportunity to make my own little contribution.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. David. Your contribution is always massive, enlightening, and educative. So we are so grateful. Thank you for sharing your experience with us. We can take one more. Contribution. Can take one more contribution before we close. Is there anyone that wants to speak? You can unmute and speak. Okay. In conclusion, there's one experience I want to share. It's a lesson learned. There's one of the stadiums. I was opportune to work in two stadiums during the FIFA World Cup preparation. So one of the stadiums I worked with, there was this activity. It was a SIMOPS, and I think there was no other way to do that job. So I was not a safety manager in that project. I was a lower level, so I was not making the senior management decisions. But that activity was allowed by the senior management. They've allowed it, and they've given us instruction to monitor from safety angle, to monitor that the activity is carried out safely. So what was happening was there was an installation of facades. There's a design that they used to design the surface of the stadium, and it needed to be welded at the same time. So it needs to be welded on the top. So the activity was, it was the facet was carried with crane, 2 cranes actually. So it was a tendon lift. So 2 cranes were suspending this facet from both sides. And there is a man lift carrying 2 persons. And inside that man lift, they are holding their welding tools. So they have to weld this facet while it's being suspended. So that was the planning for that activity. So, and what happened was that in the process, during that welding, there was a change of shift. So the morning shift has finished, and the man lift has lowered the guys in the morning shift. So they've come down, and the evening shift, we are taking up the activity. So there was poor communication between the 2 shifts. They did not inform the oncoming shift that one of the joints have not been welded completely. So they did just halfway. There was no proper communication. So when the guys from this evening shift came on board, they went up and they saw that there's a welding signs of weld on that particular joint. So they felt it has been completely welded. So they concentrated on the other side of the joint. So after welding that joint, so they felt it's complete, and they instructed the crane to leave or to start releasing the hooks. So it was in that process that that side that was not completely welded fell off. And that was a very major incident. You see, and in that process, luckily nobody died. So they were suspended with full body harness, and there was rescue. So they were rescued. So this is one of the lessons learned, that in SIMOPS operations, communication, if not adequate, could cause a lot of issues. So one of the control measures we put in place was that until that facet was fully erected, it must be completed in 1 shift. Anyone that has been raised up must be completed by that shift, even if it means taking over time or extending or starting early enough to ensure that anyone raised by that shift must be fully welded and fully completed by that same team, to avoid this type of situation occurring. So that was one of our lessons learned, and I felt to share it.
Sorry, I'm in a noisy place, kind of, yeah. But I just want to ask a question. Well, regards to the simultaneous operations, yeah, I feel like it could be predictable, in the sense that it could be predictable, knowing that, okay, there will be an activity like this in the future. And secondly, in a production company, is it possible? Like, I feel in a production company that the work environment is being planned in such a way to accommodate simultaneous activities. For example, simultaneous activities. For example, if you're working, like, it has a process, and this process, is like a chain, and everybody is working at the same time. Yeah. So because of that, during the design stage of that particular project, or that particular project, yeah, I feel like, it's going to be designed in such a way it will accommodate simultaneous operations. Like, for example, where I'm working with Amazon, and Amazon activity requires that everybody has to be working at the same time. But even at that, there are many engineering mechanisms that have been put in place in order to prevent people, like, in order to, ensure that people are working safely at the same time. And also supervision is also another tool. Supervision is also, have high level of supervision in the work area to make sure that for every section that supervisors try to make sure that people are doing the right thing they are supposed to do, because any mistake you make might affect the next person close to you. So because of that, despite the fact that there are engineering mechanisms that are put in place to make sure that people are working safely, there are also supervision in place. Like our brother said, there are a lot of signages that you have to follow. And another thing, another big tools that you can use to manage this situation is training. You must make sure that people that are working, that the employees are properly trained, not just anyhow trained. They have to be trained properly, and also refresher trainings on like every week. We always have refresher trainings for the workers to make sure that they know what to do and they know the activities, the tasks they are supposed to do, and they know the right place they are supposed to be. We use like a kind of warning tapes to demarcate areas, for you to know that, okay, if you are working here, this is the safe distance for you to stay and do your activity. For example, you are transferring, like I'm working in a warehouse, yeah, a safety advisor. So in that warehouse, the distance of where you can move the trolley from this distance to that distance. You know when you have to load the bags and all that. So everything is being designed in such a way that it can accommodate simultaneous operations. And at the same time, it's only people that have the appropriate training that can be able to, carry out these activities as per expected. Yeah, that's all. I just want to chip in. I'm just busy. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, boss, for that contribution. The risk or the hazards that we are more concerned about is during construction stage. So when it has entered into production stage, is designed to work simultaneously. There is none of the machines or none of the tools is going to stop for each other for the other one to operate. So in that situation, now it now has to do with monitoring, adequate monitoring to ensure that the process continues as planned. But during the construction stage, that is when these simultaneous operations becomes high risk, in the sense that some of them can just come up even without you noticing it, or some of them can start going on without your approval, and it becomes a very disturbing issue. So thank you for that, your wonderful contribution.
Yes, let me just add just 1-2 minutes. Yeah, just what the last person said. Yeah, the truth is that there's one big challenge is, that or one big challenge that we face most in the construction industry. Like just as Mr. Johnson has said, sometimes you see activities just emanating without your consent, without your knowledge. Sometimes these are where we have issues. We have to argue. We have to drag some things. Our other brother said it earlier. He said, in his site, giving instances of in his site, how things were done, how they do this SIMOPS coordinating meeting and all that. Yes, you see, one thing I know is that in the oil and gas, whether it's whether onshore, offshore, in the process industry, the way they think, you see, SIMOPS is, in construction, you hardly see them having SIMOPS coordination meeting. As in the word SIMOPS, you can have other meeting, but you see the SIMOPS meeting, it's very difficult, especially in the construction industry outside the oil and gas, to do this kind of thing, because there's always a conflict, because this department or these people wants to do their job. This one wants to take the pride that they are more efficient and all that. So sometimes there's always a loggerhead, with the health and safety department. You see, so this, for me, I see it as a big challenge, in the area of construction. But I know for sure, in the process industry, I am telling you, is one core thing that they don't joke with. Even if the company, because it's a process, when you jeopardize safety, it can destroy the entire process. it can destroy the entire process, the entire factory. So you could see the implication of why such activity are more given an attention. Yeah, as a professional, and I still believe we that is where we come in. Whether you're at the level of an advisor or whatever, we still need to speak to the management. We still need to assess some situation. Even in the process industry, there are some things that cannot run concurrently. Just like Mr. David has said, you cannot be doing spray paint or you're painting and expose the atmosphere to explosive whatever, and at the same time you're doing hot work. No, whatever, what is your target? What you want to produce? Then it's zero because the entire factory will be set ablaze. So all these things are things that we come to give that advice, and I believe common sense with an awareness knowledge will be able to speak volume. I just want to end my contribution here so that I won't take much time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you guys, and thank you all for your wonderful contribution and your feedback. We really appreciate. Thank you, David. Thank you, Casey. Francis, thank you. James, thank you for attending. Femi is there also. So we will be rounding off today's segment here so that we'll not keep it so long for us. So thank you guys for joining. Next week we'll meet again to discuss another topic.
Thank you, sirs.
All right.
God bless.
Thank you, Femi. Yeah. Have a nice day.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys.
Yeah. David, have a nice night.
I'll go change this boss. You don't say that if you have to.
Thank you, boss.
Boss, good night.
This guy boss.